How is it that Israel can bomb 2 Syrian airports and it is not considered a declaration of war? They bombed airports in Syria in the current war. How can this be acceptable and not considered a war declaration? Israel and Syria have been in declared war for 75 years. No peace treaties have ever been signed between them. Because the declaration of war was made in 1948, Israel and Syria have, legally speaking, been in a state of war ever since. Putting to the side the fact that they never signed a peace treaty to end the previous war, the severity of a hostile action taken is pretty much irrelevant when it comes to if it'll result in war or not. The only thing that matters is if the countries involved want to escalate matters. People have started wars over entirely inconsequential bullshit and have chosen to not start wars in response to deadly serious violations of territorial integrity. Syria is in absolutely no condition to go to war with a heavily armed American ally. So they won't. It's as simple as that. Syria doesn't recognize Israel, and they consider themselves to still be at war with the Zionist entity. They have been at continuous war for over 70 years. There was never anything discussed about stopping it. Syria does not recognize Israel. They are at war since Israel foundation. Also, what can the Syrians really do about it? I know Syrians can't do anything about it. I understand now that they are at war since 1948 and never had a diplomatic relationship. Syria doesn't recognize Israel, and I guess they think having a ceasefire would be like finally recognizing Israel. Thank you guys for the answers. Israel has been conducting airstrikes against Syria to prevent weapons from reaching Hezbollah or Hamas for years. And Israel and Syria Bashar al-Assad are technically at war. Real answer: Syria is involved in a long-running civil war and cannot support a war on yet another front. It is also a huge proxy conflict. No one is taking seriously a regime that has so little control over its own territory and so many internal problems. Can't start a war if it never ended. What exactly is Syria gonna do about it? They're not exactly in a position to be going head-to-head with Israel. And besides, couldn't we also consider their stationing and harboring of Iran-backed militias who regularly conduct or contribute to attacks on Israel as a declaration of war on Syria's part? Is there even a Syria anyways? Pretty sure the country is a de facto warlord state. The simple answer, other than the fact that the two countries have always technically been at war, is that Syria is more or less a failed state. Their government does not control or govern all of the territory within their borders and is still fighting to regain that control. Syria is really in no position to attack anybody. The Syrian gov can't do much themselves regardless, except maybe slaughter their own. They have a weird mix of state and non-state influence which allow non-state actors to get away with much more, i.e. use government fund and facilities to launch attacks on Israel. Israel has their right to defend themselves. When attacked, they document it and counter-attack. Officials at this point would take the responsibility to provide the information to Syria about exactly what happened. Syria can't use their own military to attack back for a number of reasons. International expectations, repercussions, etc. If they ever did use their military to attack, the US would cripple them. Fun fact: the last country that the United States declared war on was Romania in 1942. Nothing the US has done since then has officially been a declaration of war. This isn't uncommon, and if I had to guess, I'd say that the vast majority of military actions in another country's territory were not official declarations of war. This is the majority of people have no clue what has been happening in the world. Syria has been in an active war for years. Because Syria is funneling Iran weapons through its airports, making it a legitimate military target. Does the official Syrian government even control the two airports? Syria wants no parts. They can barely control their own territory, and Israel seems ready to rain Armageddon down on anyone who looks at them funny these days. Syria doesn't exist. Israel has nuclear weapons, about 150,500. They don't tell the official numbers. When you have those, you can do whatever you want. The strong do what they will, the weak do what they must. Easy. Syria isn't actually a state. They've been bombing targets in Syria and other nearby places for many years. It's hypocrisy that Israel's attacks are not viewed in the same light as other non-Western actors. Nobody cares. The Syrian regime is scum. They deserve to be blown up. Israel has been routinely bombing several targets in Syria. They cite the presence of Iran-backed militias, including Hezbollah, on Syrian soil. Syria is having a civil war. Several countries, Russia is all fighting inside. The runways were damaged. It's a respectful tactic. Fixable stops immediate danger. Just like that, the question of this discussion went to China and Taiwan. So, if Syria decides to bomb Tel Aviv, the rest of the world would be in holy uproar. Flushed, right? I am sure the Syrians look at it as war. It's just leadership refusing to take accountability. Wait till you realize that China versus Taiwan and South Korea versus North Korea are all technically still at war. 2. When Syria starts making threatening statements about what they will do, Israel learn to deal with them preemptively, because that's the only way. You cannot negotiate with terrorist state like Syria. Syria can surely declare one, can't it? Would it be helpful for them to, though? Asking more than making a statement, lol. The Syrian armed forces don't have the capabilities to engage the IDF. Israel has been bombing Syria every now and then for all of its civil war. Syria is too weak for a war with Sahel. Syria is a free fire zone since 2011 and its de facto partition between Iran, Turkey, Russia, America. Short answer: Al-Assad is a lil baby man who can't respond lest he get vaporized. Israel and Syria are technically still in a war. Israel never gave back the Golan Heights. Do you know the reason they bombed those airports? To stop an Iranian plane filled with weapons from landing there. Those weapons would have been used by terrorist groups to attack Israel. Why in God's name would that allow that to happen? A state of war has existed with Syria since 1948, and has only concluded with armistice agreements and not peace treaties. Syria never recognized Israel as an independent state, and the state of war between two belligerents is still a reality. Syria has supported Hezbollah in attacks on Israel, and Israel sees attacks on the airports as legitimate targets. Russia and Japan still have not signed a peace treaty over WW2. US never declared war on N. Vietnam or M. Korea for that matter. And of course there are no peace treaties. Paris Accords are not officially a peace treaty. My point is, both declarations of war and peace treaties are no longer required. For the same reason that Syria using their airport logistics to funnel advanced weapons systems to Iranian proxies actively engaged in combat with Israel is not a declaration of war. The strong do what they can. The weak suffer what they must only through violence or all policies in effect.